Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Hey. We'll be learning today Mirz Hashem, Taf Kuf Dun Gimel Amid Aleph. We're holding in Hilchos Yom Tov, Siman Taf Kuf Chaf Tes. This will be in Mirz Hashem, the second to last share in Chelik Hey. We're holding in the middle of Sif Aleph. So, on the top line of Kuf Dun Gimel Amid Aleph, a few words in. We're talking about the mitzvah of simchas Yom Tov. Says the Mechaber, "V'tzarich lechabdoi ula'angoi kemoi b'Shabbos." We have to be mechabed Yom Tov. We have to be mechabed it. We have to treat it with great kavod, and we have to ula'angoi. We have to enjoy it. We have to make it enjoyable, just like we have to on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Gimel. "V'tzarich lechabdoi." What does it mean to be mechabed Yom Tov? How are you mechabed Yom Tov? Says the Chavetz Chaim, "Dahainu rechitza b'chamin be'erev Yom Tov." You have to take a shower. You have to bathe and wash yourself in hot water on erev Yom Tov. K'moi be'erev Shabbos, the same way you have to on erev Shabbos. Ayin le'el siman reish samach. V'chein similarly, shel yilbash ksus nekiya. You should put on special, nice, clean clothing for Yom Tov. V'lo yilbash malbushei chayil, and you should not wear weekday clothing. U'kamoi le'inyan Shabbos, just like we learned by Shabbos. Ayin le'el siman reish samach beis. Sif Aleph Ubeis. V'hu adin le'inyan Yom Tov. The same way on Shabbos, you have to be mechabed Shabbos with ksus nekiya, with clean clothing, and you're not supposed to wear big day chayil. So to on Yom Tov, you don't wear big day chayil. Ois katan daled kemoi b'Shabbos. You have to have oinig Yom Tov, the same way you have to have oinig Shabbos. Tiksiv, it says in the pasuk, "V'karasa la Shabbos oinig liktoish Hashem mechubad." The karas ala Shabbos einig. You should declare for Shabbos, it should be einig, it should be beautiful and enjoyable. Likdoish Hashem mechubad. The Yom Tovim namar behen mikra kodesh. And by Yom Tov also it says mikra kodesh. The Gam b'taris kahanim issa mikra kodesh. It's called a mikra kodesh kadsheyu. You have to sanctify Yom Tov. Umameh atam kadeshai. How do you sanctify Yom Tov? B'maichel u'mishnah, with special foods, special drink, u'ksus nikia, and with beautiful, clean Yom Tov and Shabbos clothing. That's why my lighting is wrong. Excuse me. I see I neglected to turn on my video lights. Bear with me there 1 second. Hang on. I keep looking at the screen and I see that it looks dark and I'm trying to figure out why, so I'm adjusting my overhead lamp. And then I just realized that my video lights were not on, and that was the problem. Okay, so now, here we go. Now let's go to the top line of Kuf Nun Gimel Amid Aleph to the words of the Ramah. Hagah, the Ramah says, "Va'aser le'echel mimincha ulamayla be'erev Yom Tov k'moi b'Shabbos." Now, literally, the words of the Ramah mean, it is aser, it's prohibited to eat from mincha ulamayla, which means from the time of mincha ketana, which is 2.5 hours before shkia. You're not allowed to eat, again, this is the literal translation, you're not allowed to eat on erev Yom Tov, beginning 2.5 hours before shkia, kemoi b'Shabbos, the same way you're not allowed to eat on erev Shabbos, once you hit that time, 2.5 hours before shkia. Shehu shezeru meklal hakavod, because that also is included in kavod Yom Tov. You see, we want you to come into your Yom Tov Suda b'teyavain. We want you to have an appetite. Now, if you're going to eat on erev Shabbos or on erev Yom Tov too close to Shabbos or Yom Tov, then when it comes to the Suda, you're not going to be hungry. Therefore, included in kavod Shabbos and included in kavod Yom Tov is the idea: don't eat after the Zman of Mincha Ketana on erev Shabbos or on erev Yom Tov. Now, the Biur Halacha says that not only are you not supposed to eat starting the Zman of Mincha Ketana, really you're not supposed to eat a half an hour before Mincha Ketana. So that would be 3 hours before Shkia. Now, let's take a look here in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says in Ois Katan Hey, "Va'aser le'echel." The words of the Ramah were, it's aser to eat. Says the Chavetz Chaim, "Hai lishna lav davka." This wording is actually imprecise. It's not aser, it's not forbidden to eat. The Gam be'erev Shabbos ain't aser. Even on erev Shabbos, it's not aser to eat after Mincha Ketana. Ela mitzvah lihimana milikbaya suda mitesha shoyis ulamayla. Rather, there's a mitzvah. It's a specific mitzvah of kavod Shabbos. It's not a negative. It's not an isser that you're not allowed to eat. It's a mitzvah that you should not eat. Mitzvah lihimana. It's a mitzvah to refrain milikbaya suda, from sitting down and having a kvius suda, mitesha shoyis ulamayla, from the 9th hour of the day and on, which is 3 hours before Shkia. The Chanal, the Siman Reish Mem Tes, Ayin Sham. And again, or let's see, it's cut and vav. Mimincha ulamayla, hainu mizman mincha ktana. Meaning from the beginning of the zman of mincha ktana, which is 2.5 hours before Shkia. However, the Biur Halacha says in Dibra Mascha, mimincha ulamayla, lav dafka, this is also imprecise. It doesn't really mean from the zman of mincha ktana and on. Da'af chatzi shakaydem zman mincha ktana. Even a half an hour before mincha ktana, dahainu mitesha shoyis ulamayla, from the 9th hour and the day on, you are not supposed to be kaveh suda anymore on Erev Shabbos or on Erev Yom Tov. Ois katan zayin in the Mishnah Berurah, shezeu mechlal hakavod. This mitzvah is part of kavod Yom Tov and kavod Shabbos. Kedei sheyochal b'leil Yom Tov l'teyavayin. And again, the reason for this is we want you to come into the Yom Tov Suda or the Shabbos Suda b'teyavayin. We want you to have an appetite so that you should enjoy the Yom Tov Suda. So don't go sit down and eat a whole meal on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov and then turn up your nose when you sit down by the Yom Tov Suda. Okay. Continues the Ramah. So the Ramah just told you the halacha. You're not supposed to be kaveh suda late in the day on Erev Shabbos or on Erev Yom Tov. However, on the second line near the end, says the Ramah, mihu im Erev Yom Tov Shabbos. Let's say Erev Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos. So Shabbos is Sunday and Monday. Well, if Erev Yom Tov is Shabbos, you have to eat in the afternoon because you have to eat Suda Shlishis. You have to eat Shalosh Shudas. So what do? Miyu im Erev Yom Tov Shabbos, says the Ramah, if Erev Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, Yachal Lekayim Suda Shlishis, you could eat Suda Shlishis, the Yochal Ma'at Pas, but you should eat only a small amount of bread, Lechvoid Yom Tov. In other words, you have to eat Suda Shlishis, so you could wash and you could eat bread, but the Ramah is saying that Lekavod Yom Tov, make sure that you don't eat too much bread. Don't fill yourself up too much, so that you should be able to come to the Yom Tov Suda that night b'teyavon. Now, the wording of the Ramah over here is Yachal Lekayim Suda Shlishis. You can eat Suda Shlishis. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah and get a better understanding of what this means. Says the Mishnah Berurah, cut and ches. Yachal Lekayim, says the Chavetz Chaim. Ritzainer Loimar, what the Ramah wants to say over here with this wording of Yachal Lekayim is Afilu im shachach oy ovar. Even if you forget or you didn't forget, you just were over, you transgressed. V'loy kiyem suda shlishis kaidem zman mincha ktana, and you did not eat suda shlishis before mincha ktana, Yachal Lekayim achar. You could still go ahead and eat Suda Shlishis after Mincha Ktana. But take a look what the Chavetz Chaim is telling you over here very clearly. The Chavetz Chaim is telling you that when Shabbos is on Erev Yom Tov, you're supposed to eat Suda Shlishis before Mincha Ktana. Don't eat Suda Shlishis late in the day so that you should fill yourself up before the Yom Tov Suda. Eat Suda Shlishis before Mincha Ktana. But if you didn't, if you neglected to eat Suda Shlishis before Mincha Ktana, whether you did it inadvertently or you did it intentionally, you could still go ahead and eat Suda Shlishis. But oz mitzvah lachatchila lizar sheyochel rak ma'pas kedei sheyochel b'laylo l'teyavon. If this happens and you goofed and now you're going to eat Suda Shlishis taka after Mincha Ktana on Erev Yom Tov, so okay, you could eat Suda Shlishis, but refrain, don't eat too much bread, don't fill yourself up. Continues the Chavetz Chaim, and he says, V'hu adin, the same halacha applies, k'shachal Yom Tov rishayin b'Shabbos, shayach kol elu advarim. Let's say Yom Tov is not Sunday and Monday. Let's say Yom Tov is Shabbos and Sunday. So still, when you eat Suda Shlishis on Shabbos afternoon, that's Yom Tov Rishon, you're going to have the Yom Tov Suda of Yom Tov Sheni that night. So the same halacha applies. Preferentially, you're supposed to eat Suda Shlishis before Mincha Ktana. If you goofed and you're eating Suda Shlishis late, You could still eat Suda Shlishis, but you should eat less so that you should have an appetite for the Yom Tov Suda. Continues the Ramah. Third line down near the end. Mitzvah lalosh pas be'erev Yom Tov l'chvay Yom Tov k'may be'erev Shabbos. There's a mitzvah to bake special challah l'chvay Yom Tov, the same way there's a mitzvah to bake challah l'chvay Shabbos. K'may shedispar le'el siman reish ben beis. Continues the Mechaber. V'chayev livtzaya al shtei kikaros. The same way you have a requirement of lechem Mishnah on Shabbos, you have to have 2 challahs, so too there's a requirement of lechem Mishnah on Yom Tov. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut and test. V'chayev livtzaya, you have to wash and make your hamaitzi over lechem Mishnah. B'shtei ha'seudais she'oichel b'Yom Tov. You have 2 sudas that you're mechuyev to eat on Yom Tov. You have the night suda and the day suda. By both of them, you have a chiyuv of lechem Mishnah. Ois katan yod al shtei kikaros shegam b'Yom Tov lo haya yarid haman k'may b'Shabbos. The reason we eat lechem Mishnah on Shabbos is because we're celebrating the fact that on Erev Shabbos a double portion of man fell, because the man didn't fall on Shabbos. And indeed, that's we say in Vayichulu, Vayavarach Elikim es Yom HaShvi, Vayikadesh Oisai, Bercheu Baman and Kacheu Baman. The man didn't fall on Shabbos, and a double portion of man fell on Erev Shabbos. So it's because of that double portion that we eat Lechem Mishnah. The man also didn't fall on Yom Tov. So on Erev Yom Tov, there was the double portion of man. So the same rationale that applies to Lechem Mishnah, the same reason we need Lechem Mishnah on Shabbos, we need Lechem Mishnah on Yom Tov. V'hayayorid be'erev Yom Tov kiflayim. A double portion fell on Erev Yom Tov. Incidentally, I always said, I just quoted the Rashi to you. Let me see, I have a chavish here somewhere. Okay. Quoted properly. We say in Vayichulu, Vayavarach Elikim es Yom HaShvi, Vayikadesh Oisai. The Rabban Shalom benched Shabbos, Vayavarach Elikim es Yom HaShvi, and Vayikadesh Oisai, and he sanctified it. So Rashi says, Berchai Baman. What does it mean, Vayavarech, that the Rabban Shalom benched Shabbos? Berchu Baman. He blessed it with man. How did he bless it with man? Shekal Yemaisa Shabbos Yard Lehem Omer L'Gilgolis. Every day of the week, they got an Omer for each person of man. Ubeshishi Lechem Mishnah. And on Erev Shabbos, they got a double portion. So Vayavarech Elikim es Yom HaShvi, that the Rabban Shalom benched Shabbos, he benched Shabbos with man, with the fact that a double portion of man fell on Friday, 1 portion for Friday and 1 portion for Shabbos. V'kitshu b'man, and he also sanctified Shabbos with man. How did he sanctify Shabbos with man? Shelo yorad by man klal, that the man didn't fall on Shabbos. So this was always very interesting to me. Chazal are telling me that there's 2 separate milas, 2 separate advantages that Hashem gave to Shabbos. One is Vayavarech, he benched Shabbos. How did he bench Shabbos? That no man fell on Shabbos. How is that a bracha for Shabbos? Because on Shabbos you don't go out and collect. All week long you have to go out and collect your man. On Shabbos you don't go out and collect. On Shabbos you don't collect man. That's a bracha to Shabbos, that on Shabbos I don't have to go do work. But also Kacheu b'man. He sanctified Shabbos with man. Rashi says how? No, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Vayavarech, the Rabban Shalom benched it with man, that the double portion fell on Shabbos. Vayikadesh Oisai v'kitshay b'man, the Rabban Shalom sanctified Shabbos with man, that on Shabbos man didn't fall. So that's v'kitshay b'man. The Rabban Shalom sanctified Shabbos with man, the man didn't fall on Shabbos. So on Shabbos you don't go out and collect. That's v'kitshay b'man. Vayavarech Elikim es Yom HaShvi, he benched it with man, that a double portion of man fell on Erev Shabbos. It always bothered me, the kasha, how is that benching Shabbos with man? You want to tell me Vayikadesh Oisai, that the Rabbanim Shalom sanctified it with man, that man doesn't fall on Shabbos? That I understand. Shabbos is a special day, I don't go out and collect. But how is a double portion falling on Erev Shabbos, Vayavarech Elikim es Yom HaShvi, that the Rabban Shalom benched Shabbos with man? all week long, I got fresh man. On Shabbos, I have day old man. How is that vayavarach say? How is that giving Shabbos a bracha? So what I always said is that you have to understand what the nace was, that on Erev Shabbos they got a double portion of man. Remember, they didn't go to collect a double portion. They went down on Erev Shabbos and collected man the same way they did every other day. They didn't do a stitch of extra work. Miraculously, the derech nace, when they went to take a look how much man they had, they discovered that they had a double portion. So that means that Shabbos' portion came on Erev Shabbos benes, without the Yidden doing anything to collect it. I think Pshat is also that it wasn't day-old man, it was Shabbos' man. They received Shabbos man on Erev Shabbos, and that's why they didn't have to collect it. They didn't have to collect it because it's nothing that really came now. It's really tomorrow's man. You're getting tomorrow's man b'derech nes today. And that's vayavarech elikim es yom hashvi. That's a very big bracha for Shabbos. The bracha for Shabbos is that the Rabban Shalom made a special nes that you miraculously receive Shabbos' man on Erev Shabbos. Now we still have a remnant of this nes ad hayom, which is that Mezaynoisa Shaladam Tzuvin Loy Merosh Hashanah Tchilas Hashanah Vad Seif Hashanah Chutz Me'otzai Shabbos Yom Tov. We know that your mezainis, your panasa, is decreed by the Rebbeinu Shalom on Rosh Hashanah for the whole year, with the exception of the money that you spend on Shabbos. Shabbos is free. You spend extra money on Shabbos, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives it back to you. So go buy delicacies for Shabbos, and it doesn't matter. Of course, it means within your station. It doesn't mean going crazy. But you go ahead and you spend extra money for Shabbos. It doesn't cost you anything. Shabbos is free. Berurah, Zal Zayin Gesund, always told younger light when they got married, younger light who didn't have a lot of money, Berurah would tell them, I'll tell you how to eat free all week long. The way you eat free all week is, you're making Shabbos, it's only you and your wife. So like this, you thought to yourself, I'll make a small soup, and I'll make 2 fertlach chicken, I'll make 2 pieces of chicken, one for me, one for my wife, and that's what we'll have for Shabbos. Berurah said, no, make 6 portions of chicken, and make roast chicken, and make schnitzel, and make potato kugel, and make lakshin kugel, and bring it all out to the Shabbos table, and load the Shabbos table up with delicacies. Now, it's only you and your wife. You're going to have 1 piece of kugel, and you're going to have 1 fertile chicken. She's going to have 1 pulka, and she's going to have a half a piece of kugel. What's going to be with everything else? Everything else is going to be leftovers. And the leftovers you're going to eat all week. But it's zicha bigger covered Shabbos when you load up the Shabbos table with food. So all of that food was made l'covered Shabbos. And then it's all free. So now you eat all week for nothing. Okay. Now we go weiter in the Mechaber. Says the Mechaber. So the Mechaber said, "V'chayev livtzaya al shtei kikaros." You have to make hamoitzi on lechem Mishnah. Also says the Mechaber, "V'likbaya kol suuda al hayayin." You should have a kviyas suda al hayayin. You should have wine by the Yom Tov meal. Says the Mishnah al hayayin, "Hainu gam be'emtza suda." Not only the kiddush wine. You should have yayin be'emtza suda. Take out a nice Cabernet and have wine as part of the Suda. Milavad masha kiddush ala yayin betchila. Besides the kiddush that you make at the beginning of the Suda. U'kemoyle inyan Shabbos. And he says on Shabbos also, v'chanal b'say siman reish nun sif beis. You should have yayin mitoch hasuda. V'gam mitzvah lechel basar. And there's also a mitzvah to eat meat. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'chol zeh in yodai maseges. This is only if you're able to, within your station. V'ayin le'el b'siman reish ben beis. Sif Aleph. V'isa ba'avodah zara daf hey. B'sach avodah zara daf hey amid beis. It says shetikdu laharbois besuda, that the Chazal were misakin that you should have a bigger suda, specifically b'yom tov harishon shel Pesach, on the first day of Pesach, uba atzeres, and on Shavuos, uba Rosh Hashanah, and on Rosh Hashanah, u'b'yom tov ha'achron shel Chag, and on Shmini Atzeres. Let's take a look in the Sharet Tzion, Ois Cotton Yud Gimel, where the Chavetz Chaim says why these days of Yom Tov specifically. Says the Sharet Tzion, Lefi shehu yom geula v'cherus, The reason why you should have an extra special Suda on the first day of Pesach is because it's a Yom Geula V'Cherus. That's the redemption of Kal Yisrael. We're celebrating the Geulas Mitzrayim. And when we were Yotzei Me'avdus L'Cherus. So that's a special day where there's a special Indian to be Marba B'Suda. Uba Atzeres, and on Shavuos, Levishu Yom Matan Torah. We have to celebrate Kabbalas HaTorah. Uba Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Hashanah we should be Marba B'Suda. Levishu Tchilas Hashanah, because it's the first day of the year. Oisin Kain L'Siman Tov. We know that on Rosh Hashanah we do a lot of things because Siman Milsa. That siman that we make. That's why we eat the challah dipped in honey and the apple dipped in honey for Shana Tova Masuka. Also, you should be marba b'suda, because that's also a siman for a good year. Ushmini Atzeres, and on Shmini Atzeres you should be marba b'suda, lefi shehu chashuv. Shmini Atzeres is considered an extra chashuv of Yom Tov, v'hu regel b'fnei atzmai. It's not just a continuation of Sukkot, it's its own self-standing, very chashuv of Yom Tov. That's when the Rabbeinu Shalom says, Kasha alai pridaskem. You were together with me, Rosh Hashanah, Aseres Yimei Tshuva, Yom Kippur, the first days of Shavuos, Chalamayid, and now it's coming to the end of that wondrous season. It's Kasha alai pridaskem. It's difficult for me that you're leaving. So there's a new Yom Tov, Shmini Atzeres. That's a very chashuv of Yom Tov, and we should be marba b'suda. Aval Yom Tov Rishon Shel Sukkos Loi. But as far as the first day of Sukkot, we don't have the same idea, the same need to be marba b'suda. Why? Lefisha ha'am trudim b'mitzvah sukkah v'arba minim, because before the first day of Sukkot, you're so tied up with building the sukkah and getting the daled minim ready, so you don't have time. Ve'ein penai lahachin harbe. You don't have the same amount of time to go spend time on the Suda of Yom Tov. So on the first day of Sukkot, you don't have as much a need to be marba b'suda as much as these other times. And so too, it seems, on the last day of Pesach, you also don't seem to have quite the same inyan of being marba b'suda. Continues the Mechaber. 4 lines up from the bottom at the end of the line, right by the ice cut and Yud Beis for the Mishnah Berurah. Also, for covered Yom Tov, Ubigda Yom Tov yu yoser tovim mishal Shabbos. The special Yom Tov clothing that you have should be even more chashuv than your Shabbos clothing. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Yud Beis, Ubigda Yom Tov misham dechayiv b'simcha. On Yom Tov there's an additional chiyuv of simcha. On Shabbos there's a chiyuv of einig Shabbos, covered Shabbos, but Yom Tov there's also a separate mitzvah of simchas Yom Tov. And v'zeu gamkein b'chlal simcha, putting on beautiful, special Yom Tov clothing that makes a person feel good. He's misameach. So that's an inyan of simchas Yom Tov. Upashit t'chol zeh gamkein b'yodam haseges. Of course, this should also be within a person's financial station. Says the Mechaber weiter, by the ice cut in Yud Gimel, 3 lines up in the middle. V'loy nagu l'asais b'isuda shlishis. On Yom Tov, we do not have a minig of sudas shlishis. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Yud Gimel, v'loy nagu ki im shtei sudais arvis v'shachris. On Yom Tov, we have a chiyuv of 2 sudas. We have a night suda and a day suda. I see I underlined over here, Dirshu footnote number 19. I don't remember why. Oh, he just says here in the footnote, not 19, Amnam kishachal Yom Tov b'Shabbos, when Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, kasav amagid avram shetzarach lechol shalosh sudas. If Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, of course you do need shalosh seudas. Ubiyom Tov ha'achron shel Pesach gamkein kishaloichal b'Shabbos. On the last day of Pesach, many people have a minig. Hayanoyeg hagra. The Gra had this minig, and I believe the Baal Tanya also had this minig, interestingly enough. Lechol suda shlishis, that on the last day of Pesach, they did make a suda shlishis, kedei laharois es chavivois mitzvah achilos matzah, because they wanted specifically to go eat another suda with matzah. So on the last day of Pesach, they were not to eat suda shlishis. So again, I'm going to read from the beginning of Mishnah Berurah's cut in Yud Gimel. V'lo nagu shlishis, and Yom Tov, there is no minig of suda shlishis. Ki im shtei sudas arvis v'shachris, only a night meal and a day meal. V'chayiv lechol behen pas, and by both of them you mechuyev to wash. And like we said, you should have lechem mishnah. V'im loy achal b'leil Yom Tov. Let's say somebody neglected to have a Yom Tov suda by night. He came home, he was tired, he went to sleep. Yochal b'yom shtei pa'amim, he should make 2 Yom Tov sudas by day. V'yekadesh b'shachris hakiddush shalayla. And by the first Suda, he should go ahead and make the Yom Tov night Kiddush by day. U'kamoyle inyan Shabbos v'siman reish ayin aleph sif ches, like we saw similarly in Hilchos Shabbos, v'siman reish tzadi aleph sif aleph. V'hinei yesh me'achreidim shekasver, the Chavetz Chaim says there are those achreidim that write. Da'af de'ein noegin lasei shuda shlishis b'pas, even though we don't have the minig of making a suda shlishis on Yom Tov, washing and having lechem mishnah, etc. Mikal makom, nevertheless, tov sheyochal peros, you should do something l'chvay Yom Tov, at least sit down and have a nice snack of nice peros. V'yesha kasvu, and there are those that write, Shemizen nispashet haminig, that from this began the minig, lechel b'Yom Tov tafshel echad yoser b'shachris, that you should serve another dish in the morning by the Yom Tov Suda, sheichashev b'makom Suda. That since we don't have the minig of Suda Shlishis on Yom Tov, so then by the morning Suda, serve an extra course to make up for that missing Suda. You don't get away with that on Shabbos. You can't say on Shabbos, I'm not going to eat Suda Shlishis, I'll just have another kugel by the day meal. That doesn't work. But on Yom Tov, when we don't have the minig of Suda Shlishis, serve another course by the day meal to make up for Suda Shlishis. Says the Ramah, 3 lines from the bottom near the end of the line. Ubi Yom Tov, on Yom Tov, ma'achrin lavai lebeis hakneses. The Ramah says that you should come a little bit later to shul. This doesn't mean that you should come late, Rabbi Sai, to shul in the morning. It's not what it means. It means that davening should start a little bit later on Yom Tov. And the Mishnah Berurah is going to say the reason for that is not because for Einig Yom Tov we want to sleep late. It's so that we should be able to get up and be busy with the Tzarchei Suda. We should have extra time to prepare the Suda. So get up, do something to prepare the Suda, and then go to shul. Davening should start a little bit later. I know that sometimes I had this, where I would prepare a roast before Yom Tov, and as Shlomo Zalman will tell you, you don't want to slice the roast while it's hot. If you try to slice the roast while it's hot, it falls apart. So you make your roast, you let it rest, you let it cool off, and then when it's cold, you go ahead and slice it. You get beautiful slices, and then you rewarm it. So sometimes I would put up a roast on Erev Yom Tov, and then I would put it away to cool, and then in the next morning, I would get up a little bit earlier, so I should have time to take out the roast, slice it up, put the gravy over it, and then get it into the oven so it should be nice and hot for the Yom Tov Suda when I come home. So he's telling you over here, davening could start a little bit later on Yom Tov, so you should have time to work on the Tzarchei Suda before davening. Umemarin lotzeis, and then you get out of davening a little bit early. Don't drag davening on unnecessarily. Mishum simchas Yom Tov. We want you to get home to the Yom Tov Suda because of simchas Yom Tov. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Gedalid, ma'achirin lavai, you start davening a little bit later, kidei l'troyach b'sudas Yom Tov, kaidim sheyelchu lebeis hakneses, so that you could be engaged in preparing the Sudas Yom Tov before you go to shul. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'ha'idna nowadays, shema'arichin b'piyutim u'b'nigunim, nowadays when they make davening longer, because they say piyutim in the Kehillos, where they say yotzris, during the Chazaras Hashatz, u'b'nigunim, and they sing maybe Hallel and other things, ben yotzer or l'kriyishma, or they go ahead and they sing in the Berchas Kriyishma, v'karov levadai sheyavar zman Kriyishma, and already as it is, we're running the risk of missing Zman Kriyishma. Tzarech lahashkim b'chal Yom Tov. You have to make sure to get up early and start davening early on Yom Tov. Kedei likreis Kriyishma b'zman aroi, so that you shouldn't chas v'chalila miss Zman Kriyishma. Now let's start Sif Beis, the bottom line. Chayiv adam lihiyos sameach v'toiv leiv b'mayid. A person has to be misameach. A person has to be happy. He has to rejoice on Yom Tov. He has to be sameach v'toiv leiv. His heart has to be light. He has to be happy. He has to be in a wonderful mood. Who himself, the Ishtai and his wife, Ubanav and his children, the Chal Hanilvim Elov, and everybody who is attached to him. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Tezvav, 2 lines from the bottom, Chayiv Adam lihiyos sameach. a person is required to have simchas Yom Tov. He has to be misameach on Yom Tov. For mitzvah asay min HaTorah, this is a mitzvah asay daraisa, to be misameach on Yom Tov. The ksiv, like it says in the pasuk, v'samachta b'chagecha, you should rejoice on your Yom Tov. And it applies to women as well. Ois katan tezayin b'mayid, ayin b'rambam, and now we turn to the last page, the last daf of Chelik A, ayin b'rambam perek vav mehilchas Yom Tov, where the Rambam says the gar chalamayid hu b'chlal mayid le'inyan simcha. The chalamayid is also included in the chiv of simcha on Yom Tov. You have to be misameach on chalamayid as well. You don't have the requirement of kavod v'einig, and we said that kavod and einig is rechitza b'chamin, to take a hot shower, and ksus nikia, that you don't necessarily have on chalamayid the same way you do on Yom Tov. Because over there it does not say mikra kodesh. Okay, so we're going to stop over here. Mirz Hashem, tomorrow we're going to have the last shir in Chelik Hey. Very exciting. We're going to make a siyum on Chelik Hey. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should stand Gans Klal Yisrael in good stead. The Rebbe Shem should be megan. The Rebbe Shem should protect Gans Klal Yisrael. We should be zeicha to the B'yas Gerel Tzedek b'meher v'yameinu b'simcha. Be well.